From Prison to Peer Work, brought to you in partnership with the Pursue It If You Want It nonprofit organization.
My name is B. Willis, aka Coach B, and I just want to talk a little bit about reentry and what that looks like. And in a nutshell, for those that don't know, uh, overview reentry is anytime somebody's returning to the society after they've been gone from it. Um, that could be veterans, it could be psychiatric hospitalization, it could be drug addiction, and then sobriety. You're re-entering into society, operating in a way you've never operated before. What I'm going to focus on specifically is re-entry from prison and jails, and what re-entry services could look like in the future with collaborative efforts and information dissemination, coalitions, and everybody not being siloed off that's doing the community work. Because let's just say, for example, no excuses, but you take a person, he has a high ACE score. This person then, although they could make better decisions, doesn't, ends up judicially entangled many times. Let's say the number of times is 7 times they're incarcerated. But also, that means 7 times they have been released. 7 times they had to navigate this process we call reentry. So, of those 7 times, at a minimum, 6 of them were failed attempts at being successful in reentry. And so I start to think of things and play out these scenarios, regardless of the fact that we can say that person should have made better decisions. They didn't. That's a fact. So shaming somebody never goes anywhere, right? That's the problem. It happened. It's also the past. Reentry, in my opinion, should be focused on the present. And reentry efforts should start at the inception of that initial contact with law, the separation that happens from families. And so, a big part of reentry for me is holistic reentry, which is about the family reunification process, which should start the day a person is torn from their home or kids are torn from their home. When somebody makes poor decisions that end up causing them to serve some time. Let's just say that same imaginary person been arrested 7 times. Well, maybe somewhere between the 5th and the 7th, they met someone and they created a family. Just because somebody goes to jail for dealing will not automatically mean that the partner of that person was A, okay with it, B, involved in it, and C, condoned it. They might have fell in love, whatever the case may be. What ends up happening is this provider, this person who's in the game making these moves, gets yanked out. They raid the house, they take the father. There's kids left in that situation with, for argument's sake, the unbeknownst partner, whether it be male or female. Somebody goes to prison, somebody's left behind. Now, if the person left behind was not used to providing, and then they have to start now thinking about this multiple childhood household without the other parent, the other partner, that is when reentry should start. That is when the reunification process should begin. So when I founded Pursue It If You Want It, the nonprofit that the idea is to empower justice impacted families, this is the bigger picture that I'm talking about. Things like, how do we now take that person? Let's just say it's a mother. The father goes to jail for whatever reasons. There's multiple kids in the house. Let's say 2 kids. One's 4, one's 10. These kids are now distraught. This is a traumatizing event in their childhood, which would score them somewhere on the ACE score in the future. And now, what if there's an agency that could this mom could reach out to like literally the day of arrest and say, this is what's happening. This is what I need. Can you support me? And the answer would be yes, ideally. And so right then, we start the community wraparound process, right? Because what ends up happening, the story plays out like this. The person who's been to jail, who's a dealer or whatever he was, out there making money, taking care of his family, this is the reality that this is the narrative that they have lived for so long, right or wrong. This is his reality. So inside, he's making now calls home, trying to get all these things taken care of, putting undue stress on the partner out there with the kids. And whether that process ends up with him doing a year or 2 years or 4 years, this woman now has to completely shift gears and figure out how to manage childcare on her own, get a job or two jobs, and then what happens when the kids need extracurricular activities, cheer, basketball, football, wrestling, whatever the case may be. They want to be musicians or dance class. The mother can't afford that. Now, if these kids aren't getting those extracurricular activities, along with the mom getting some type of support, a support group, education, that's where I feel like reentry misses the mark, because the person in there is going to see all these things happening, and their baby mother's life falling apart, everything bad. She now blames on him. He blames on himself. Whatever happens during that incarceration, this person now has this very long and sharp proverbial sword that they're gonna, with all honor and pride, they're going to fall on that sword. And what that looks like is him telling himself he can't wait to get out, to get back to the bag, to put his family back right because he destroyed it. And then this is the perpetual cycle, because for sure he's going to get caught this time, maybe sooner than last time. Maybe he learns some things and tries to make better plans about how to do it better next time. But what ends up happening is, in my experience, you just get caught again. You just hustle until you get caught, right? And so you get your girl to stay with you that one time, but what about the second time or the third time? Now, if there's a wraparound community support that is focused on the holistic healing and the reunification process in a preventative stage, when this person is calling home and he realizes his wife or is in a good mood, the kids are in multiple different extracurricular activities, there's community support, there's reentry specialists and reentry level peer specialists and support groups for the people on the outside that are going to be riding time with somebody. These are the types of things that I want to help create. The problem is, a lot of our community programming is siloed off. Everybody's trying to do their own thing and fight for the same grants like a carcass in the wild. And what ends up happening is we miss the mark, because then we're trying to do so much with little collaboration amongst each other. Your peers can't be over here, or your clients can't double dip. But what about like a concept of free I came up with, which is an acronym, right? Focused Reentry Education Efforts. Free. If there was a coalition of some sort where we could actually talk and meet and really sit down at the table with people that can make these things happen and accessible, we wouldn't need grants. We just need the community to make the donations, and the community can fund and create this board and come on this coalition, because then we can do the equitable thing for each family, because equality in peer services or direct services, it doesn't make sense. You need equitable services where people are able to get what they need for their particular situation, right? I am the founding director of Pursue It If You Want It. You can look us up, pursueitifyouwantit.org. There is going to be some upgrades to the website. We also have a Facebook page. And we also use the philosophy Pursue It 365's interchangeable logo that you can see right here. So far, what we've done since our founding in 2023 is, we've been able to do Easter basket drives for families of people that were like in the halfway house or in the work release or in clean and sober housing. And we did a school supply and backpack drive for the same. And we're trying to focus right here in Thurston County because it seems like a lot of the money gets dumped up north and then it trickles down south. And by the time it gets to like Thurston, Mason, Lewis, there's not very much left for these programs to be as robust as they are in, say, Seattle, right? I'm right here in Thurston County. I'm focused all of 2025 and pursue it if you want it. At our next board meeting, when we talk about the mission, like this is it. We want to wrap around, holistically support families in the beginning stages where there's a peer support for the person throughout their incarceration, and that coaching, mentorship, whatever that looks like, if it's enrolling in Securus, if it's doing the things that allow them to have a higher rate of success. I myself was incarcerated many, many times. But again, if I just throw a number out there, and this may be true or may not, but let's just say if I was incarcerated 10 times, the same principles apply. If I was incarcerated 10 times, it means I was released 10 times. It means 10 times I was unsuccessful with my reentry efforts. 10 times I didn't have something step in the way and change the trajectory of my life. I lived in a particular narrative for a very long time, and that narrative, every chapter ended with me incarcerated until finally I was provided peer support, guidance, mentorship, belief, levels of self advocacy I didn't understand that I could have, right? And that, all of those things I just said didn't cost any money, right? That's what I'm talking about holistically. When we want to provide support, a lot of it isn't going to be a financial gift card or gas voucher or check. It's going to be that actual education, that knowledge, that walking with, that lived experience. I've been there, I've done that. My wife has been there, has done that. And then a proven pathway showing the recovery levels. I am now completely free off of federal probation. I owe nobody, I owe no debts. My debt to society has been paid. And that happened a very particular and intentional way. It wasn't by accident. I didn't slip and fall into recovery and being able to do these things. It was intentional. I live my life intentional now. I live my life with many mentors. Something simple that I didn't even know I didn't know when I got out? Filling out my W 4. I did it wrong the first time. And so for a year, like the taxes weren't even being taken out correctly. And I ended up owing money. Like that potentially could send somebody who spent their whole life making fast money, give it a year, did this thing, thinking they're going to get a tax return, and then they don't. And then, in fact, they end up owing a large lump sum. That's very discouraging, right? So, we're talking about generational wealth education early on, showing somebody the basics that has been in the game maybe their whole life and having this mentorship process. Like, let's work on credit. Let's talk about what financing and refinancing means. Let's talk about, how to fill out a W-4 form, what a cover letter is, what resume should look like. And while you're incarcerated, these are some skills you should probably intentionally gain so that you can put them on your lived experience resume, regardless what you do when you get out. When I set myself free while I was incarcerated, that's what happened for me. Is I started to focus all of my intention on things that were investments for after I got out. I stopped thinking about getting out because with the release date, that was going to happen regardless. It'd be like focusing on breathing 24/7. That's already going to happen. I'm going to get out. So now, instead of focusing on, I can't wait till the day I get out and nothing after that, I started focusing on what am I going to do when I get out to stay out and to make this be the most successful. And then I started reaching out to my community. And with the conversation and the energy that I was putting out there, the feedback and the reciprocity of people giving me encouragement, uh, securing job for me before I even got out, doing anger management classes, parenting classes, learning all these different things is what really allowed me to make this complete holistic turning point in my life where I'm 28 years worth of judicial entanglements from the time I was 12 until just a few weeks ago. I'm 40, and it's the first time I've been free since I was about 12 years old. I want to give this knowledge. I want to give this type of door. I want to open it for anyone that's willing to enter and start working on themselves right when they get involved with a case and they're telling their family, this is it, this is the last time. I want to help them make that true. So it's not just another time they said it, but I want to create programs, and I already have, but I'm one person. That's it. You know, the board of Pursue It If You Want It, everybody has a job. Everybody is hyper focused on living their best life and taking care of themselves. And so the efforts that we're able to put in have very high quality and value because it's just a handful of people in our community that really believed in me. And because of that, we're able to generate some really positive energies and moments. And we've affected a lot of families that are justice impacted and justice involved. But in 2025, I, I think we can do more. I think with more involvement, more organizations willing to partner up and team up and actually like address the nucleus of these problems. Like, let's get into the preventative, sustainable recovery and healing and holistic community building. That reentry would be much more successful if it was approached in this holistic way. That is what the Hope Dealers is about. That is what Pursue It If You Want It is about. And the Pursue It 365 interchangeable logo, or if you call us Pursue It, it's all the same. It's because this takes a 365 day a year effort. We make little efforts every single day in the direction that we want to go. And eventually you're there and you just stay there and you keep moving forward with all the different things that bring you joy that some police officer can't come and take away. Now, the last thing I'm going to speak about or just touch on is reentry looks very different depending on if you're coming out as a man that went to prison or a female that went to prison. The internal processes in these different situations are vastly different. And so, again, reentry needs to be looked at from completely different, holistic, wraparound angles and starting at the point of separation. That is when reunification should start. For that is when reentry efforts should take root. The moment somebody is in there feeling like, I just want to go home, I'm never going to do this again, that's when they're the most likely to let someone come in and introduce them another way. And if it works and they take it in and they make an agreement with themselves, that's evolution. It's hard to go back once somebody has made agreements with themselves to make changes and then been shown a pathway.